Chikafa from Envision Sewing Patterns. Today we're going to be sewing up the midi length Sonny with the double high splits. If you're not making the splits, just skip over the splits instructions and continue on to the hem. First up, we're going to be preparing the neck and armhole binding. Press the binding in half lengthwise. Fold in one side to the crease that you just made and press. Do the same to the other side. Fold the binding in half again and press. Now you have some nice creases for sewing guidelines and folding. Repeat on the remaining bindings and set aside. Grab your dress if you haven't already. Mark your center front and center back. Match the shoulders, right sides together, and pin or clip. Pin and clip the side seams. Take it to your machine. I'm using my serger, but you can use a sewing machine. It all works the same. Sew your shoulder seams. Then sew your side seams. Grab your neck and armhole binding strips. If you haven't already, mark the center. I like to do this as I'm cutting out the pattern from the fabric. Open up the binding and match the short ends, making sure you don't twist the binding. Take it to your machine and sew the short ends. On the neckline of your dress, match the center front and the center back markings. Mark the middle or in between points and do the same on the other side. Grab your neck binding and match the center front with the seam. Mark the middle and in between points like the neckline. Place the right side of the binding along the wrong side of the dress neckline, matching the back seam of the binding with the center back, and match the quarter markings. Now sew along that first crease. As you sew along the first crease, slightly stretch the binding. For your armhole binding, match the shoulder seam and underarm seam and match the in-between points like the neckline. Do the same on the other armhole. Mark the quarter points of the binding the same as the neck binding. Match the seam of the binding with the underarm seam and match the remaining quarter points. Remember, right side of the binding with the wrong side of the armhole. Sew along the first crease and repeat with the other armhole. Now you're going to trim down all of your binding seam allowances by about half. Turn your dress right side out. Fold the binding over onto the right side and pin or clip. Top stitch with a long stitch length. Grab your split binding. On one side, align the bottom and raw edges. There will be excess binding at the top. At the top of the split, mark 1/4 up past the split. With a 1/8, 1/4 seam allowance, sew from the bottom up to the 1/4 marking. On the other side of the split, align the bottoms and raw edges just like the other side. Use the 1/4 mark at the top of the split from the other side. I like to use a pin instead of a clip here to hold it in place. Here's a close-up view of sewing the split binding. Sew a little past the 1/4 marking. Make sure to intersect the stitching from the other side. At this point, trim your seam allowance if you need to. My seam allowance is 1/8 of an inch, so I don't need to trim this time. Fold the binding over to the inside along the seam and press. When you get to the top, kind of massage the seam to make it smooth and press really well. Press down the other side. Once I press, I like to clip the split to keep it in place as I top stitch. Top stitch up, around, and back down, making sure to enclose the seam of the split binding. Carefully trim the binding along the stitching. Now press really well. We're almost done. Now turn your hem up 1/2 inch and press. Then stitch in place and press again. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Happy creating!